Mývatnsveit lies on a plateau in the northeast of Iceland. At 300 meters above sea level, it is the largest rural district at that altitude in the country. The Mývatnsveit area is one of the most renowned tourist resorts in the country. It has a relatively pleasant climate, varied flora and fauna, and a host of interesting natural phenomena. Thousands of tourists come to Lake Mývatn every year. The chief attraction is Dimmuborgir, or the Dark Citadel, a mystery world of lava formations, one of the wonders of Iceland, where rough black lava and abundant vegetation provide a dramatic contrast. The Dark Citadel has inspired many poets, including the local poet Jakobína Sigurðardóttir. In the eastern skies appearing, gently striding, the pale-faced moon, wide-eyed, cannot help but wonder this wondrous light, this night in June. But beyond the towns and seashores, the largest wonder waits for me, the dark castles my eyes ever longed to see. There are practically countless varieties of lava formations here. This is an amazing labyrinth of cliffs, pillars, ledges, arches, fissures and caves. The Dark Citadel covers a circular area of 2 to 3 square kilometers south of the crater Hverfell. This is a unique natural phenomenon much revered by Icelanders. Peculiar rock formations are to be found in these parts. In the Seljahjallagil ravine, southeast of Lake Mývatn, are giant-like towers and pillars of solidified lava, the result of the abrasive action of water on the basalt rock, which formed columns as the lava cooled thousands of years ago. Closer to Lake Mývatn, which is the 4th largest lake in the country, the lava formations are more similar to those of the Dark Citadel. Billions of flies, about 50 different species of gnats, as well as the midges from which the name Mývatn, or Lake of Midges, is derived, are of vital importance to the biota in and around the lake. Birds, such as the northern phalarope, feed on midges and tiny crabs found near the surface. In all, 43 species of birds are known to nest in the Mývatn locality. Among the more striking ones is the Slavonian grebe, dashing and peculiar in its behavior, particularly during the mating season in spring. The Slavonian grebe is the only Icelandic bird that builds a floating nest. The largest Icelandic colonies are at Lake Mývatn, where over 200 nests have been counted. "28 species of duck have been spotted at Lake Mývatn. 15 are known to nest there, mainly the tufted duck and the scaup. The actual number of ducks per square unit is probably the largest in the world. For the Barrow's golden eye, Lake Mývatn is the sole European nesting place. Similarly, the harlequin duck, which can however be seen elsewhere in Iceland, is most commonly found by the Laxá River, the only river running from Lake Mývatn. The chief reason for this rich bird life is the abundant food supply. For example, these midge larvae the harlequin duck likes to feed on. The The weather at Lake Mewat is characterized by a marked variation in temperature and the relatively little precipitation, which explains the luxuriant and rather special vegetation in the area. Flowering species are prominent, including hawkweed-leaved treacle mustard, or Queen of Mewat, as it is called, because of its abundance here and scarcity elsewhere. There are not many nesting sites as rich as Lake Mewat. As regards the duck population, a comparison can be made with a few Scottish or Canadian lakes. But what sets Lake Mewat apart is that it is in the middle of a volcanic zone. Bubbling sulfur taras, steam issuing from the ground, yellow sulfur, all this bears witness to the volcanic fires slumbering under the ground, south, north and east of Lake Mewat. This is one of the more active volcanic systems in Iceland, the Krapla system. It has been active for at least 200,000 years, the last eruption taking place as recently as 1984. The lava fields from these eruptions extend over more than 30 square kilometers in the vicinity of Lerhnjúkur and Gjástykki. They are pitch black and a stark contrast to the white steam and colorful scenery, which looks almost alien in places. The center of the Krapla system is the Krapla caldera northeast of the lake, but not clearly visible. Closest to the lake is the gigantic crater Hverfjall. From a distance, it resembles a moon crater, but is in fact of the same type as the island Surtsey. This is where American astronauts came for their geological training in the 60s, prior to walking on the moon. Hverfjall is built up by layers of volcanic ash and clastic rock fragments. The actual crater is 1,000 meters in diameter and 150 meters high. The crater was formed during a powerful but very brief tephra eruption, about 2,500 years ago. Water most probably entered the eruption channel and caused the ejection of ashes instead of lava. Torrential flows of tephra raged down the slopes for about 3 kilometers, and a considerable amount of tephra was carried dozens of kilometers through the air, as shown here. The figures on the map indicate the thickness of the tephra in centimeters. The view from the top of Hverfjall is magnificent. The Hverfjall eruption started a new period of volcanic activity in the dormant Krapla system, which is still ongoing. Volcanic fissures opened with ensuing lava eruptions, and the Krapla caldera erupted. This volcano erupted 1100 years ago, then again in a series of eruptions between 1724 and 1729, and finally in the Krapla eruptions, a total of 9 eruptions between 1975 and 1984. Iceland is almost entirely formed from similar layers of lava over a period of 15 to 20 million years. After the formation of Hverfjall 2,500 years ago, the ancient Lake Mewat remained unchanged and different from what it is today. The fissure swarm of the Krapler system extends from the Bay of Öxarfjörður to an area about 100 kilometers south of Lake Mývatn, with a caldera-topped, dome-shaped volcano at the center and long volcanic fissures with numerous craters, faults and ravines. Magma can break out in the caldera from a chamber 3 kilometers down, or through fissures along the extensive fissure swarm. About 2,200 years ago, a volcanic fissure of several kilometers opened up to the east and south of Hverfell. A row of splatter and cinder cones piled up and were called Þrengsla and Ludensborgir, after an ancient tephra cone similar to Hverfell called Ludent. At the same time, Krapla erupted. During an enormous lava eruption in Þrengsla and Ludensborgir, a vast amount of lava flooded into the ancient Lake Mývatn. 2 to 3 billion cubic meters of lava were ejected from the main fissure. The rising magma columns, the roaring lava torrent, and the bubbling pools of lava must have been an awesome sight to behold. The lava covered the older lava field near the Laxá River, which is colored red on the map, and flooded down the Laxár and Aðaldalur valleys to the sea. The lava pressed on the lake, and the fierce interaction of lava and water created the wondrous pillars and islands. The depth of the water decreased to only a few meters. Along the old waterfront, numerous pseudo-craters were formed during steam explosions. Here, the former outlines of Lake Mývatn are shown in green, and the red dots indicate the pseudo-craters. Lake Mývatn, as it is today, is the result of this eruption. In the enormous eruption in Þrengsla and Ludensborgir, the dark citadel was formed. A rapid lava stream most likely filled a large hollow with lava just south of Hverfell. The lava bubbled and boiled in this witch's cauldron when the magma gases evaporated and the water in the hollow turned to steam and then burst forth. It took a long time to fill the hollow. A hardened crust formed on the surface, around steam islets and where the lava flooded over the edges. Finally, the lava broke out along channels. Ledges, steam holes and walls of hardened lava remained, whereas the crust broke and collapsed as the lava flooded out from below. Pillars and large boulders of lava still show signs of what happened as large lava bergs rubbed against them 2,200 years ago. The vegetation of the Dark Citadel is dominated by birch, both shrubs and tall trees. But there is also willow. Flowers and blooming heather add a further variation. Reddish-pink moss campion forms tight vaulted tussocks. Creeping thyme is a delicate and fragrant evergreen bush with dark red flowers. Heather has the same color, and a single plant can be expected to live 50 years. The leaves of the mountain avens are the staple diet of the ptarmigan. The beloved common juniper also decorates the area. It is of the pine family, and the only Icelandic plant of that group. The sight and sound of moorland birds is a source of pleasure in the Dark Citadel, but one may also spot the agile falcon ready to fall upon its prey, which more often than not is unaware of the impending danger. Although falcons nest in the Mývatnsveit area, they are no threat to its biota, and at times the falcon has nothing to bring home at the end of the day. In the dark citadel, one can expect to come across birds' nests. One must never touch them, nor disturb the birds. At the base of a birch tree is the nest of a snipe. In the redwing's nest, tiny and helpless chicks huddle together. The merlin chicks, in their cliff nest, are somewhat larger and more self-assured under the beady eyes of their parents who race around the citadel. And the raven is there too. To the ordinary tourist, the great danger to the dark citadel is not obvious. Silent and threatening, it comes from the south. Sand. This delicate but powerful enemy progresses steadily from the large wasteland of volcanoes and glaciers in the central highlands. The sand is carried by wind and water and is ever advancing northwards. The sand causes abrasion of the soil, undermines the roots of plants and submerges vegetation and geological formations if its progress is not stemmed. By the 1930s, the sand had advanced as far north as the dark citadel, destroying vegetation on its way. Gradually, the sand silts up hollows and depressions and levels out the features of the landscape. It seeps into the dark citadel and has now covered up some of its treasures. The damage is irrevocable. This cave had almost disappeared, but now the sand has been cleared away. The locals fought a losing battle against the sand that threatened the existence of the dark citadel. In 1942, farmers in the area donated the land to the State Land Reclamation Service in order to encourage conservation measures. A large area was fenced off in order to keep domestic animals at bay. Impressive stone walls were built by hand, and limegrass seed was sown. The limegrass is hardy, has sturdy roots and survives well in sand. It is tall, gathers sand and forms a shelter, and has turned out to be a successful plant for soil reclamation under unfavorable circumstances. The progress of the sand was eventually stopped, but the danger was not averted. The south wind constantly brings more sand, which collects in drifts that grow higher and become top-heavy. The greatest danger is if the drifts suddenly collapse. The largest ones are like time bombs. The State Land Reclamation Service, as well as the locals, emphasize the conservation of the dark citadel. Therefore, attacks on the sand have been renewed, this time employing modern technology and efficient machinery. Where the machine cannot reach, the human hand takes over. These men are sowing limegrass seed. Volunteers have done a great deal of good work, and financial contributions from people all over the country have been invaluable to the reclamation efforts. Old hay rolls are used to stop the advance of the sand and also to store seeds. Soon, new grass will begin to sprout in the sand near the hay rolls. Seed and fertilizer is spread both inside and outside the citadel. This is beneficial to the new grass and also to the existing vegetation, which will then be more able to resist the sand. In the not-too-distant future, birch and willow will also be planted. Increasing numbers of tourists visit the dark citadel. The thin layer of vegetation has worn away in the most popular places. Paths have been formed where the soil eventually disappears, leaving deep furrows in the ground. In order to protect the vegetation and the soil, the walks have been signposted and the areas cordoned off. Footpaths have been covered with gravel, and wooden steps and bridges have been placed where the ground is particularly rough. All possible measures will be taken in order to stop the sand, protect and encourage vegetation and bird life, and prevent environmental damage. We at times forget the negative aspects of modern living. Human habitation in the Mývatnsveit area causes pollution. Waste is often not properly disposed of, and much work still remains to be done, although this tip has by now disappeared. The effects of the diatomite factory near Reykjahlíð on the flora and the fauna are a much debated issue. Dense population and farming also affect the environment. Care must be taken that industry, services, agriculture, and the utilization of land do not spoil the nature or the environment we live in. We must never forget that man is a part of nature and not its master. The Dark Citadel is one of the jewels we must protect in as natural a state as possible. After summer comes autumn. Cool winds brush the countryside, and the snow is already halfway down the slopes of the mountain Bláfjall. Tourists and migratory birds seek warmer climates, and a quiet settles over the land. Everyday life goes back to normal. The raven and the local people watch an empty citadel. It's almost as if the Dark Citadel is hibernating, strangely bewitching, black and white in the wilderness.